It's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
Hello, welcome to our newest experiment for Channel Z. How are you doing, Pam?
I'm really good. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing really well. So today I just got back from this land out in Kingman that I am going to try to figure out how, not necessarily to survive on permanently, because I still have a job here in Tempe, but like what it would actually take to like build a livable habitat out in the middle of nowhere, because it's a thing we've sort of talked about a lot. But it turns out, even I realized this weekend, actually trying it's a lot tougher.
But it's great to have that alternative, right? In case things go really south.
So I think that's the big question, is like, would it be worth, at what point is it worth sort of traveling out to the middle of the woods? And if you do, what are the sort of challenges out there? And so this is basically, we're calling this this old apocalyptic house. We're essentially I'm going to try to build a house in the middle of nowhere. And I'm going to try to do it with as little economic, both as little economic impact to myself and as little ecological impact as possible. And your family has built a cabin, right?
Yeah. I have 80 acres in northeastern Iowa. About 15 acres of it is a fallow field, and the rest is just virgin timber. It's really nice. I mean, I think it's really nice.
Well, here's a picture. Here's the back of the house, which I think is really nice, and
it's very green.
The lane. It just looks amazing.
It's beautiful. Can you show a couple of pictures of yours in contrast?
Jeez, in contrast, I thought mine was nice too. So, all right, here is this. This is what I'm working with. We've got this is an RV that looks like it was just destroyed. And here's a close up of the window for the RV.
Maybe somebody got really, really mad at being out there and just said, "Screw this," and just destroyed it.
And then there's this structure that, like, clearly somebody started trying to build it, and then they decided, I don't know what happened.
It could be beautiful though.
I mean, except it turns out that there's a lot of structural issues with this. So we'll go back and look at this in a second. But I want to bring on, oh my gosh, I want to get this picture of a table out of our face. There we go. I want to bring on Carl.
Sorry.
Hello. How's it going, Carl?
It's going really well. I'm looking at those cool images from the place, Dave, that I think one of the major questions we have to ask ourselves is, if there's a structure in place, do you destroy it first and then start anew, or do you try to recover?
I think that is really because this structure, so I'm going to bring this back up real quick. Like, it is the wood. Well, here's just a picture of like some wood that was on the ground. And as you can see, the wood, I don't know if it's usable. It's like completely falling apart. And I really would like this to be a thing where we go out there and we sort of reclaim things, just like essentially not just come out and just like, at first I was sort of looking at like these sort of like prefab little houses and things. And Erica says, that is a question I've asked myself many times over the past 2 days while I was out there. And so, but it's some of this wood just doesn't seem that useful. So let me show you guys real quick a clip of my daughter and I trying to fix up a table out there. So we did bring out power tools, which raises a question of electricity and things like that. So we can go back to that. But here was our our attempt at salvaging this table that we found.
Should make this a time lapse and then put like the hamster dance. I'll sing it. Hold on. The prisoner emerged from his cell. What?
I said, should I put it out here? At least that's real wood.
Sure.
There? Maybe even there might be better.
I don't think this
Could go
table
there.
is sturdy. That looks the best.
There?
Sure.
You got this. Okay, you just come stand over here.
Will it stand?
Kinda. Here it is. Good as new.
Congratulations.
Like making it a little more zombie decayed. Like just a little.
Our plan was we were gonna just like buff it and get all the paint off, and then that plan didn't work. And so then we ended up just throwing a sheet over it, and it kind of stayed, kind of.
So Dave, I've got a question for you. How far away are you from civilization? Like the nearest hardware store, say?
So we are okay. So the two nearest towns are Kingman and Seligman, and Kingman has like a Home Depot. Kingman is about on the main road. It's the exit to where we are is 30 minutes east of Kingman, 30 minutes west of Seligman. But then you have to drive down this really, really bumpy dirt road that it's 10 miles and it takes about an hour. And you need a high clearance vehicle. And I've got like this Volvo station wagon that it works, but there were some points where it was Greta was terrified a lot. But it raises this big question of like, so say we did want to bring stuff out there, how do we get it out there, right?
You need a truck. You do.
Well, Erica threw in an interesting comment about the idea of making a pit house, which might actually address, a little bit of the need for bringing so many materials out. I think that could be a really interesting, a way to approach this by using the ground to help create the structure. Maybe it wouldn't require quite as much material for transport. I mean, I'm sure you'd still need some structural timbers and things of that nature, but
sounds like a lot of digging.
That does sound like a lot of digging. But that might be, I mean, the thing is I can get a shovel out there, right? So that
you want a jackhammer.
Right.
Really?
Another thing I was thinking about in terms of the found materials out there, because I think it's interesting that Pam and I both have remote locations in the upper Midwest, so we're having to deal with the winter issues. So all of that wood, if it had been laying on the ground, would have certainly rotted. But in a desert climate, it might not be as rotten because it is not going through quite as much, wet seasons and things like that. And so, I mean, maybe one of the things from a standpoint of creating a zombie-proof compound, maybe using those found materials more to create defense structures, and then around your old apocalyptic house.
Right. So this is actually, so my son was really worried about us being attacked by some sort of wild creature out there. And he didn't want to sleep in the tent. And he did, but he pushed really hard to sleep in the car. And so it's
How old is he? How old is he?
He's 15, but he's also, he's a city kid like me.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't like anything. Even a bee, when he sees a bee, he's like, I'm not sure about that.
You do have scorpions and snakes, so he's not totally out. out of line.
Yeah.
I mean, scorpion's no fun. And when you're way out there, what do you do when you get bit by a snake or a scorpion?
Right. So there's bobcats out there. And so there's this question of, should we be thinking about how to build fences around our shelters?
Yeah, I think
making a livable shelter. That's a good question, right? Of like safety. Well, I think that safety, we're like, one of the advantages of being way out there in an apocalypse situation is there's not a lot of people around, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of wild animals, and so it is this question of defense, right? How to defend, like,
I think that's the least of your problems.
Now let me ask this.
Water and poop are two big ones.
I agree with Pam. I mean, I remember going up into the North Woods with my wife for the first time, and we had kind of a situation like your son, where we were in a fairly rustic cabin, and she was saying, well, how do we know that someone's not going to come and get us? And I said, well, I can't tell you that I know someone's not going to come and get us, or in this case, it was an axe murderer.
Sure.
I do promise you that it's probably much more likely that we would encounter that axe murderer in the city than we in the upper, the North Woods of Minnesota. Just in terms of
odds are,
doesn't mean there's not a chance. But I agree with Pam that kind of the basic necessities are the things we probably need to worry about most, and just kind of get a perimeter that would discourage your coyotes and things like that from coming too close.
So let's discuss this sort of water idea, right? So there are like there's some water sources. Here's us. Sure.
On guard.
Do not stab your sister with the ice. So we've got like.
Is that all year, Dave? That flows all year?
I mean, it wasn't that much. It wasn't flowing that much. So I think that's mostly just after rainfall, and then I think that's going to be dry. Although there is a spring, a very small spring, that flows all year and has goldfish in it. This picture makes it look much bigger than it is.
Really? Wow.
But it's essentially about a foot deep. But I don't know if you can see this little goldfish down the bottom.
Yeah.
And that they say that is year round.
Wow.
And then
that's great.
The final, and then the final thing that it's got, which is like really the best structure of the whole place, is it's got this pump house, right? And this looks like it was put in by the previous owners. This would really be our best place to hide from wolves and zombies, I think, because it's made of metal. But the water seems to have E. coli, possibly has E. coli in it. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of a challenge, is how do we get rid of the E. coli? So Neil wants to know if there's any zombies out there yet. I think they're still in the city. I mean, so,
you got a ways. You got a few years.
The thing is, they're not, like, it's so inconvenient for them to get there, but so it'd be this big trade-off, right? Of like, of being 10 miles away from this. Actually, we're like 30 miles away from Seligman is the town they based the movie Cars on, right? It's like, because it's like this small little middle of nowhere town. So yeah, Erica does mention they'll stream down from Vegas eventually.
Are zombies really that concerned with inconvenience in terms of where they're going anyways? I mean, are they making those kind of decisions? Like I'm going to stay in the city because there's more chance for prey here. Or are they a little operating on a little more unconscious level?
Also it raises the question. So could a zombie hike 10 miles without water? Like, do they need, how much water does a zombie need?
That's a great question.
Do they get all their water from brains? Or do they have to stop and like get a drink every once in a while, especially if they're hiking?
And zombies are Yeah, zombies are still kind of humans. In other words, they'll take the low-hanging fruit, right? Rather than having to travel for a long period of time for like what is basically a couple of, maybe a meal or so.
So the isolation is really important. I mean, maybe one of the things you really would do is how long could a zombie go without any of those baseline necessities? I mean, assuming that it's not getting water from drinking water, it's probably getting water from eating a human or an animal. So it really is, there's must be kind of a random chance of them arriving this far out, because they'd have to kind of bootstrap their way up, that far out.
Right. Or like sneak into the back of somebody's car. So let's see. So Vegas zombies will have, that's true. They'll have the free drinks from the casinos.
But they only have 2 of those, Neil. They can only hold 2 in each hand. So it's
exactly. So
well, can I switch gears? I'm very curious about what you're going to do with are you going to build an outhouse? Are you going to do a porta potty? That's actually a big thing, right? Have you thought about that at all?
So we've been looking into, right. So, because if we were to put in a septic tank, that would require a lot of infrastructure, right? And so that's well beyond what I think I could do myself. And I think if I could try to find like a composting toilet, and so or build a composting toilet, but we still do have to sort of at this point work within the sort of guidelines of the state, because there may still, I feel like they're still in action.
I mean,
so figuring out.
I'm just going to say, I'm a big believer of outhouses, just wooden structures, and then you build a pit and you just have a bucket of lye there. And incidentally, I think it's safe to say that our land has the only licensed outhouse probably in the world, because when we brought the outhouse in, we put the license on the back of the outhouse because it was sticking out from the trailer, and then we forgot to take the license off. So we have a licensed outhouse. But I like those. I think they're very efficient.
So now, did you guys dig that hole by hand? The hole for the outhouse?
But see,
how deep?
It's not that deep, actually, like maybe 3 feet. It's not that deep. But you're not out there that much either. You're not if you were living out there, you'd have to do something pretty substantial. But if you're not, because it'll fade away, especially if you have a bucket of lye just to throw a little bit of stuff on. It's really efficient.
The thing I'd throw out, tagging on to Pam's suggestion, is the depth of your latrine pit really kind of has an impact on the comfort of the user. And so for people who aren't as comfortable with outhouses, the deeper the pit, so that they're not necessarily seeing the stuff through the hole, has an impact. But the lye is really important because that also addresses smell, especially when you're there for the weekend.
So where do you get lye?
Hardware store.
Hardware store. Okay. So that's a thing I would need to stock up for.
I love the idea of the self-composting unit. I mean, it's more work but creating that getting that compost could certainly be helpful for having a food plot at the spot as well, and might be helpful to increase survivability.
Yeah. So when we go out there, right? So if we were to stay out there for a month, let's say, right? So we could either just stock up on whatever food we've got here. I mean, a month is probably not enough time to grow food, but long term, my son really would like us to sort of grow potatoes. He's really into this idea. Like, he really wants to build something just completely from scratch and grow potatoes and grow corn. And we do have water, from the pump. We could, even if that water needs to be boiled to, but we need to be out there. So so that's the trick. So I think Liz says she needs a very big pit for the so do you guys have food at your cabins, or do you guys just bring food with you?
We don't garden. I mean, we bring food, but then we gather. We would gather seasonally, like morels, wild asparagus, stuff like that. So it's all seasonal, but it's not something that you can plan on year round.
Yeah, that's the big challenge up in the Midwest, is that because you have the real 4 seasons. You have a period in the winter where there's just nothing other than if you're willing to do hunting, and I happen to be a vegetarian, so the hunting option isn't quite as exciting to me. But yeah, I mean, berries and mushrooms and things of that nature. You can crack open a good old Yule Gibbons.
I love Yule Gibbons.
Nature guides. Yule Gibbons was
Stalking the Wild Asparagus, right?
Yeah, a really famous 60s, 70s naturalist who had a book. One of my favorites was steamed cattails, green cattails. And so you could, if you have a book like that, you can find an amazing amount of vegetation that you can gather from the surrounding woods.
The other thing is, I have heard around here, because it's different. Yule Gibbons was more of a woods guy.
Yeah.
Desert has its own challenges, but I understand that on the Navajo reservation, there's a guy who is a Native American leader, and he takes tours of how you can gather food in the desert. So that might be really useful.
I wonder if we could get him on as a guest or something.
Love that idea.
that would be really nice, because I think sort of figuring out the practicality of that would be really wonderful. So I'm just going to show real quick a couple of the pictures of your place again. So you've got ample firewood, it looks like.
Yeah, lots of wood is the one thing. This whole place was developed to not have any very, very mitigated energy put into it. So you just, when you go there, you just turn you put the propane tank on, and you sweep the cabin out when you're done. So it's very, very low key. Do you have pictures of the interior?
Yes, I do have pictures of the interior.
It's very rustic.
I mean, there you go. You've seen what I'm working with. So this is, I think, quite. So is this a little stove that we're looking at?
Yeah,
right
it's a Franklin wash stove, but that thing will heat up the entire. It's a very small 1-room cabin, but it'll heat up the entire cabin. Because that's the other thing. You don't want to have to carry huge amounts of wood. As it is, you burn through it in the winter. Just really rudimentary. It was designed to be effortless, and it is.
So when you made this, did you guys bring in, we're looking at, the interior of these walls, is this plywood that we're looking at?
Yeah, it's just plywood. The biggest thing was the pouring. It's got a concrete floor, which we wanted. Yeah, see, that was a big deal. We wanted that because of varmints. Mice are a big problem if you're not living there all the time.
Oh my God.
Carl
that is like the house, because the house that I'm dealing with in Wisconsin is one that my father and I built in the kind of 80s, and it's kind of gone into disrepair. And one of the reasons is because we built built structure, and so mice have just been a huge issue. And that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out. Although I was thinking that a stilt structure high enough, you often think about that from flooding, but if you had a stilt structure that was 7-8 feet off the ground, again, maybe the fence becomes less important because you have a defensible structure to deal with zombies as they're coming through.
Do you have footage of that by any chance? I mean, any images or anything?
I don't know. I don't know, Dave. Were you able to get that video sorted out?
Let me see if I can just play it right here and share the screen with you guys. So I'm going to share the screen, and I'll share that. I'm going to share the audio. It does not seem to want me to. Here we go. So now. It appears we are having technical difficulties.
Oh, too bad.
Okay, well, it gives us a good excuse to come back at another point. But one of the things that's really interesting for me is how, so much of what we're talking about indeed are not zombies really just outsized rats and mice and things like that. We're just trying to figure out how to secure a location from a creature that has special abilities to invade a space. So the thing that's amazing about mice is they can get through incredibly small holes, and so they have different issues to deal with. And so it's just, to me, how we think about insulating a space from various potential predators or dangers is kind of the critical space, and all of them have different things you need to respond to. Because like cement floor is fantastic, but it's on the ground. So if you can get something up off the ground, but that creates its own problems because you're not going to do a cement floor 10 feet off the ground unless you're planning on spending an immense amount of money bringing in a contractor.
Yeah. But I think that does raise a really interesting point, which is one of the biggest fears is not from large predators, but it's from like small things, scorpions, E. coli, like little things that are range from sort of and so and even like when we were trying to find, because I was like, well, can we do this just with stuff we sort of get for free? And we like got a mattress like off of like the Broadmoor like trade thing, and my mom was like, you guys cannot take a mattress that you found, you'll get bed bugs, so this sort of idea of just, and I don't know, but so this is it's an interesting sort of challenge. So I guess since we're coming up on 11, I want to ask you guys, for my next trip out there, what do you think are the main things I would want to bring? Because space, like this fits sort of with the go bag challenge. It turns out you can't fit that much in a station wagon, so in terms of sort of solving the survival problems, what do you guys think would
a
be
tent?
A tent?
a tent, a really nice big 5-gallon water thing that you can refill all the time. Toilet paper.
and I think you have to kind of make a decision between whether you want to use water treatment pellets or some type of filtration system. So you're going to have to do some research into what will address E. coli, if that's a concern. Are you just concerned about that, or did you actually do a test?
So 2 years ago, they did a test and they found E. coli and they bleached it. They have not bleached it since then. We have not tested it since then. And so it's mostly just based on that previous report and the sulfur smell. So,
and I think one of the things I think both Pam and I would want to say is we're really like, we're hobby, folks here. We're not claiming to be experts. We're actually just coming from personal life experience in terms of helping with this. I mean, I think, maybe bringing a single burner and boiling water might be another option. It seems to me that addressing how you're going to purify water would be along with that tent, the thing that I would encourage you to really look at.
Yeah. I also think that might be one where we might want to talk to some people and figure out, I don't want to risk that, as you're saying, and get E. coli. So
I would stay really clear of the water until you're really 100% sure that you've got it licked, because it's dangerous. It literally could kill you.
Yeah, so I like that. So Erica also mentions tin cans and tripwires for an open pit of bears. She's not sure how to get the bears up there. I do have a roof rack on the Volvo. So what?
Are there wolves up there, or was it really mostly just coyote?
So it's up near. It's up near the Grand Canyon. So I've seen bobcats.
Yeah.
On trips up to the Grand Canyon.
You might get some cougars. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think
tarp is a good idea. Yeah, tarp is a good idea.
So so that's sort of the challenge.
You have that big metal building. You can start putting all the big stuff in a nice Tupperware bin and just keep it up there. You can start collecting stuff.
So I think go ahead.
A survival list, like what you're thinking of bringing and sharing it could allow us and other members in the audience to make suggestions like we're seeing.
Yeah.
Or shovel, things like that. I think that'd be a blast to build that.
I will put that together. I think that'd be great. I think also what I'll try to do, because one of the things as I've been doing this is realizing a lot of times we sort of address these sorts of things from an idea of just having sort of unlimited funds, which is not the case in a zombie apocalypse. It's also not the case for a lot of people. And so I'll keep track of all that sort of thing. So thank you guys very much. And
take a first aid kit.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dave.
It's crazy, but it seems so logical. I can't deny that there is something supernatural.